Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second last talk in the Coolangatta room this afternoon. This afternoon, I'd like to welcome Rahul, who is from Abnormal AI. He's had more than 20 years in IT, and his technical leadership brings deep expertise in solution engineering and information security, cybercrime, and cloud computing. He is regional SE lead at Abnormal, and today he is talking about the new face of the email attack when everything looks legitimate. Please welcome Rahul.
Good afternoon. Is the audio nice and clear till the back row? I should say the back row over there. Yes, okay, excellent. All right. My name is Rahul. You can add as many O's as you like, but there is no O in the name. It's a U. Either way, if you just do a Ra and that's okay. You usually get my attention. Quick question. Have you all heard the word AI enough so far, or would you like to hear more? There is a purpose behind one of the only AI native vendors, or one of the few AI native vendors in this show chooses to put up a presentation without mentioning the word AI. Because I think when we go use our washing machine, when we go use a hair dryer, or I don't know, we buy a pet collar these days, it all comes with the AI label. So I'm going to try and not talk about AI. How's that? Yes? All right, let's do it then. All right, so here's a quick story. Any guesses when I built this presentation? This morning. Who said that? You win a lightsaber from Air Locker. Please go and... No, sorry, just kidding. Okay, so yes, I was building this presentation. I finished building it. About half an hour before I was supposed to walk in and meet Dave over there to start preparing for this presentation and plugging myself in, my machine decides to misbehave to the point where I'm rebooting it, still misbehaves. Still rebooting it, still misbehaves. What's misbehaving? Basically the mouse, the keyboard, nothing is working. It starts up, nothing. All the techies are going, what could possibly be wrong? It was Claude that was misbehaving. So Claude was trying to basically do things in my browser and stuffing itself up. Guess who fixed it? Claude fixed it, absolutely right. So I asked Claude, please fix yourself, and it did go ahead and fix itself. So I have a working presentation now. If it doesn't work, we'll blame Claude collectively, okay? All right, so with that, what are we here to talk about? Any guesses? Email, yes. AI, no. Hopefully not. Phishing, yes. We are looking at some actual threats that are hitting Australia as of right now. So purposefully, I was building the presentation this morning because I wanted to show the most current attacks. Not from 6 months ago, not from 6 weeks ago, right now. Why? Because that's the rate at which things seem to be changing. I don't know why they're changing. I don't want to use the word, but they seem to be changing at machine speed, and hence there is more and more expectation that as humans, we are somehow supposed to be able to work at machine speed. And as cybersecurity professionals, we are somehow supposed to be able to keep up with this onslaught that is coming at us at machine speed. Agreeing, disagreeing so far? Yeah? So here we go. Let's try and unpack 4 recent, not the best, not the most sophisticated, but recent email-based attacks and see what we can basically learn from them. That works? Yes, that works. Yes. 4 real attacks from recent days, all from here in Australia. Has anyone yet picked up that one of those does not seem like Australia? Number 3 has a different country name, but there is a reason which I will explain. It was still detected over here, just that that particular customer's mailbox happened to be in Japan. That's why number 3 is talking about a Japan industrial target. Ready to jump in? Are we excited to sort of talk about email security? The first time I presented at our cert was back in 2013. Guess what the topic was? Email security. So I'm so passionate about it. Oh, yes. Nah. It is a problem that refuses to go away. If anything, it tends to get worse. So yeah, hence we have no choice, unfortunately, but to keep talking about it. All right. Vendor abuse. Anyone read about a recent Australian compromise that involved an attack that came in from the supply chain? Sounds familiar? The vast majority of breaches that are happening in this part of the world are coming from the supply chain. If we look at the Australian corporate arena, there is a top, very slim sort of a slither of very large organizations, and then we very quickly drop down to mid-market SMBs. Yeah, so we've got a huge SMB segment and a tiny slither of large enterprise. So the bad guys who want to break into the large enterprise are not going and hitting the large enterprises directly. They are going for the softer targets in the supply chain. Yes? It is much easier to, of course, break into the supply chain. They don't have the funds, they don't have the resources, they don't have the interest or the inclination to protect themselves as much as the big four banks want to do, as much as the mining giants want to do, who have the resources to protect themselves, right? So if I'm a bad guy and I want to break into a large bank in Australia, I can simply route myself via the supply chain, because I can break somebody who works with the bank or has a close relationship with the bank, because then as a user, I get an email from somebody I know and trust. I am much more likely to engage with it. Yes? So let's have a look at this one. That's what the message looks like. Looks familiar? DocuSign? We all get those. Most of us, especially people in finance, especially people in accounts and stuff like that, all the time signing documents is DocuSign. HR, same sort of thing. We all sign our, employment contracts on DocuSign oftentimes. It's coming from somebody who's based in Australia, who's probably had a breach on their side. So Peter, unfortunately, and I haven't redacted this, I have basically let it show over here, because I don't know this person. This is not the customer. The customer is the one who actually received the message itself. Here's the actual attack, if this plays. Google's logo is showing, but nothing to do with Google, just to show you that I'm running it in a browser. So when we try and click on that DocuSign link inside the message, this is what we get as a user. Human check required, verifying, boom, success. Preparing verification, a hazy page in the backside, looks like a spreadsheet to me. Copy code. Yeah? Login.microsoftonline.com. Anyone familiar with that URL right at the top? Is it showing clearly enough? It is not the fake Microsoft Online. It is the actual thing. So what is happening over here? I'm entering the code. Next. We are still on login.microsoftonline.com. OAuth 2 is showing in there as well. Any subtle hints on this particular screen?
So you're authenticating somebody else's device.
Pretty much. Yeah? Who wants to have a go at what exactly we saw?
Device code authentication.
Yeah, we've basically authenticated the bad guy's device. So I should say the adversary's device. Doesn't have to be a guy. It is 2026. Could be a girl. All right. So the adversary's device has been authenticated. The adversary has actually gotten the token as well. And now the adversary has authenticated into our infrastructure without a user entering a password. We have a breach without a user entering their credentials. That's what we just saw. How did the attacker stay hidden? It's a real Microsoft login that the user was presented with, right? The session was stolen transparently, whatever you want to say. No password reuse, no failed login, no alerts, none of that stuff, yeah? Where did the attack start itself? It started on a domain that was net new, stood up by the threat actor, quickly redirected to Microsoft, and all the fun actually happened on microsoftonline.com. Attacker abused a vendor the target trusts, yeah? So the end user knew Peter. That's why Peter's name appears on this particular slide. Peter had a compromise. That's how this whole attack has basically occurred. Compromise the software target in the supply chain, then go ahead, launch the attack, abuse Microsoft, in this case, Microsoft's own authentication service. You could be sitting in the US, you could be proxying halfway across the world, doesn't really matter. You've broken into the organization. Pretty simple business model, right? If you want to be an attacker, it's getting quite simple. This is from last week, late last week, in fact. Another example of what goes on in Australia day in and day out. The email itself is arriving from a legitimate file transfer service, in this case called Swiss Transfer. I'm not a user of Swiss Transfer, but I had to look it up and figure, oh no, it is actually a legitimate cloud service. It does actually what it says, which is basically allows you to share documents, etc. Our email security technology, in this case, the best email gateway money can buy as of today. I cannot name them because I get sued. URL rewriting, you name it, sandboxing, you name it, each and every possible countermeasure in the email security arsenal has been deployed in this case. The particular vendor is famous for all sorts of acquisitions in terms of, yes, we have a gap, let's go buy somebody cheap and dirty, fix that gap. Anyway, so what actually happens is the user downloads a PDF, sandbox detonation unfortunately also comes back as clean. The PDF has something inside which we will see shortly, and the compromise goes ahead. Sounds familiar? Let's see exactly what it looks like. That's what the message came in as. Download content, April virtual staff 365.pdf. There's a sent by Neville. No idea who Neville is, probably something fake, could well be legitimate, but virtual staffs 365.com.au suggests that it could possibly be not so legitimate. There's the date. So this was on the 14th. 14th was last week. So I got that right. Okay. Let's play. Again, Google is just showing to let you know that this is a real browser that I'm trying to detonate this one in. The customer is a financial services organization in both those cases, and as I mentioned, protected by the best secure email gateway money can buy. There it is. Sandbox analysis is in progress. Comes back as absolutely clean. So the message itself says Swiss Transfer, goes to Swiss Transfer. The email has actually originated from Swiss Transfer. So basically, this is a cloud service that is being abused to send an email to host the PDF as well. So in this case, the app virtual staff 365.pdf is hosted on Swiss Transfer. Sandbox fails to detect it. We will see shortly why. Here's what happens when the PDF, which has a little thing inside it, gets engaged with. We see acrobatic docum.es. Fascinating, right? How does this sort of stuff get through? You look at it and you are smiling, right? It's that obvious. So how does it get through? It baffles my mind. As a human, we look at it and go, this is obviously bad. This has nothing to do with me. Take it away. So why does all this technology, all these dozens and dozens of acquisitions, etc., fail to pick up such basic stuff? I do not understand. Let's see. Verification successful. What happens next? Anybody? What's the next page? The next page is a credential harvesting page, right? Basically, the user sees a login screen, enters their creds, and boom, gone. That's what the document looked like, the PDF. Isn't that too obvious? Dear valued client, your SSA statement is ready. Virtual Staff 365. Does it resonate with anybody in the room? Could be remotely legitimate? It doesn't. So why on earth do these kind of attacks continue to slip past, irrespective of how much money, how much of resource, how much of SOC analysts, how much of effort we put into it? Just completely mind-boggling. So systransfer, of course, is a clean website. Yes, go ahead.
I think a lot of people focus on the proof that you're human and not look at the URL. Like it's like, oh, I've got to click a box, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And especially if you're on your phone, like the rendering often doesn't show all the information, so it's not hard to get past people.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you hit the nail on the head. It's not hard to get past people or humans, right? Let's talk about, well, I'll come to an analogy on that one shortly, but pretty obvious that this sort of stuff should not get through, right? Why the PDF sandbox returned clean? Because something was being abused over here, right? Cloudflare, which is basically a security solution, has been abused over here to protect the threat actor's asset from security technologies. So if a connection is trying to sandbox me, knock it back. If the connection is not a real browser, knock it back. If the connection is coming from something that looks like, I don't know, a limited virtual machine, knock it back. If the connection is coming from a Australia, New Zealand workstation, if it's looking like a real user, then take me to the next page. Yeah? That's the unfortunate world we live in, and that's why the method we go about detecting is in question. That when we are trying to find what is on the next page, and we can't see the next page, it allows through. That's what goes on. So Cloudflare reverse proxy over here is preventing any automated tools from reaching the payload. Hence, the sandbox is failing. Doesn't matter who your email security solution provider is, they're not going to be able to see the other side of that link. And hence, if you're relying on those techniques to detect it, it's going to come through. QR code phishing, anyone experienced it? Yeah, some hands going up. That was the talk of the town last year, especially, where, yes, the threat actor figured, oh, I don't need to present a link. I should just present a little wishy-washy image that is actually a QR code. Our mobile devices are unfortunately a bit too capable. Why? Why do I say that? Because when the first time the QR codes started arriving and causing breaches, the email security industry started chasing those QR codes and figuring out how to detect them inside an image, the existence of a QR code. Once they detected the existence, they would try and decipher the QR code and reverse it to the link. Once they had the link, they knew exactly what to do. They would sandbox it, detonate it, etc., and find if the link is landing on a phishing page. We saw just previously that technique itself is flawed, but that's what the security industry tried to do. The threat actor was one step ahead. The first thing they did was simply inverted the QR code, 180 degrees, that's it. That was enough to get past each and every email security solution out there. So the email security solutions then said, oh, okay, they are inverting it, all right. We need to figure out a way such that, because mobile devices are really very smart, right? Doesn't matter which angle you put your QR code in, they will still scan it. We need the same technology in email security. Okay, done, problem solved. Threat actor comes up with another cool little trick next. They stick a little logo at the center of the QR code. You've seen some of those QR codes? Many of the top Australian organizations, unfortunately, we see those QR codes appearing, and one of the top organizations' logo tends to be sitting in the middle. Gives the user a familiarity, blocks those email security solutions from picking up the QR code or deciphering it. As simple as that sounds. Again, mobile devices, far superior. Just scan it. Perfect. No issues, right? What happened next? Any other guesses on what the threat actor did next? Yes? Divide in four, yes. One of the more recent ones is no image, only Unicode. So use text to create a QR code, because the whole idea of those security technologies has been to find an image. Oh, there is no image, it must be clean. Allow it through. Oops, the user sees a QR code. Why? Because the QR code is rendering via Unicode. So that's the catch-up game that still continues. And today we are in the world of Unicode-based QR codes by the threat actor. The vast majority of the QR code traditional industry is still using graphics and image and stuff like that. But the threat actors have said, nah, we don't need images. We can do better. So that's the one. That's why Japan is in here. Message arrives in total Japanese. That is another little flaw with many of the email security solutions. If a message is in English, they tend to be slightly more likely to catch the context of it. If it's in nuanced languages, one of the most complex languages on the planet, they tend to have their own unique struggles. HR impersonation in this case, very difficult to find because of language nuances, etc., subtleties, and so on and so forth. No URL. QR code is inside the attachment. So yes, there is an attachment. It is a Word document. But inside the Word document, there is no image. It is unfortunately just, as I mentioned, Unicode characters that are creating the QR code. Let's very quickly play it. How am I doing with time? Ooh. 20 minutes in. I'm on attack number 3. Security verification. Access granted. Opening PDF. Is it opening a PDF? Really? I don't know. I don't remember this video. Where does all this action happen? This unfortunately happens on the mobile device, because it's the mobile device we typically use as users to scan a QR code. That's what makes these threats even more sinister. These will look at, is this a mobile browser that is running me? Or is it a security vendor's sandbox that's running me? They will redirect to, in quirky ways nowadays, we see either to a security vendor's website. So a threat actor redirects you to a security vendor website saying, nothing to see over here. I know you're trying to sandbox me. Here's McAfee.com. Sometimes it is Google is the most obvious one. So Google.com just shows up. Shows up not just .com but .es, .po, all sorts of Google variants show up. But unfortunately, they have become so in your face, they will also sometimes point us to a YouTube video mocking us. Yes, unfortunately. And that's sad. It is sad that we are so hamstrung that threat actors can actually mock us in our face. Anyway, that's the threat. Any thoughts on what actually happened? The fact that this is all going on a mobile device, because it was starting with a QR code that arrived in that HR impersonation email in a Japanese mailbox impersonating their own HR department. The Word document had the QR code embedded, written using Unicode, hence no technology detected it, hence the user scanned it, and hence they landed on this on their mobile device, in the process handing over their credentials to the threat actor. That's the sad world we live in. Again, bypassed the most expensive secure email gateway that money can buy, with 30 plus acquisitions, etc., etc. Delivered via trusted vendor, OAuth URL was 0-day, no malicious payload. You could find a gazillion reasons why this got through. But my question is, when us in this room look at some random email or some random link or some random attachment, instantaneously we seem to know, no, that's bad. That does not belong to me. It couldn't possibly be relevant. Yet, how come security tools, such expensive technology, layers and layers and layers built over 20, 30 plus years, still continue to allow these things through? And what's the answer? The answer tends to be, oh, the user made the mistake. We'll come to that in a moment as well. There's VirusTotal, another community tool that I have chosen to stick a screenshot over here. Yeah, 90 plus security vendors exist on VirusTotal. Most of these modern attacks will not have a single hit. So what are we looking at over here, guys? Like, where are we heading towards? Because for the threat actor, there is no more hands on keyboard. They've got something like Claude, where they may be actually visiting OSCERT, and on the way, me building a presentation, them saying, let me launch a phishing campaign across the whole of Australia. That's unfortunately how easy it is. Not Claude, but the Claude equivalent in the dark web. So what are we supposed to do? Like, why are we so hamstrung and so sort of not being able to keep up with this stuff? Yeah, there you go. QR encodes URL as pixels. Oh, that is so hard. Like, well, the mobile devices decipher it so easily, so why can't security tools? Geo-restricted endpoints. Like, anyway, that looks familiar. That was part of this one as well. On the mobile device, we grabbed a screenshot. It's all in Japanese. So it's not just harvesting credentials. It's not just breaking into the account. It's literally designed to be clever enough to get through anything and everything. Right. This one is unfortunately, again, naming a few brands. Vendor chain being laundered over here. A bunch of different technologies being abused. Fake M365 quarantine release message. How often have we seen that? 20 plus years at least since M365 has existed. Probably even before that, we are used to, back then probably used to be exchange password reset notifications. But password reset notification and quarantine release has been probably the most predominant method of tricking users into clicking on a link. I think something needs to be said that doesn't matter how much we have trained or invested in awareness education, etc., that method has prevailed for 2+ decades. Says something about where our focuses should reside. I'm not saying we don't train users. Absolutely, yes. I sell a security awareness solution as well. But we'll come to that in a moment. Let's look at this one very quickly. That's the message. Again, quarantine, hashtag, import whatever, import NAT. Messages from AP have been held. Coming from a com.br. Anyone notice that? How often does a Microsoft message release notification come from a com.br to an Australian organization? So, did anyone in this room have an ounce of doubt that this could possibly be legit? It couldn't possibly be legit. So how does it get through? Review of impounded correspondence. Please show me not just Microsoft, any quarantine release message that has that language in it. Impounded correspondence. Like goosebumps as I even sort of put this on screen. Microsoft, Cisco, and Inky have been abused in one attack. That's why it got through. How? Let's see. Again, Google, sorry, you're showing up just because I need to show that we are in a real browser. So look at the link, please, very closely. I'll have to, I'm not wearing glasses. Microsoft Safe Links. Yeah, so we are really clicking on a Microsoft protected link. It's got Inky next, carries on. It's got Cisco Web next. Anyone familiar with any of these technologies? They all play in email security heavily. Let's engage with the link, see what it does. .br, forsurgery.com.br. The customer was nothing to do with Brazil, for sure. Confirm humanity. There we go. Verification successful. Human confirmed. So we were proving to a machine that we are a human. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Yes. Go ahead. Fish me. Look at the URL. What is that? tomiastia.com? Yuck. Anyway. So what on earth is this? Inky's API was weaponized to produce a trusted domain. Cisco Secure Web adds a second trust layer. SPF hard fail was silently ignored. Urgency of engineered into the text, exploiting quarantine release. You could come up with another dozen arguments of why it got through. But that's not the point. Why does this continue to happen is the point. How the attacker laundered the link. Yes, I've got a whole lot of text in there. You can read it if you like or take photos and yeah. What do these 4 attacks have in common? Very simply, what have we seen? We have seen abuse of legitimate infrastructure. MicrosoftOnline.com, we've seen Inky and Cisco, we have seen, what else? What else did we see? We saw Swiss transfer, all sorts of legitimate services being abused, and hence our security solutions have said, oh, this was just too hard because it was coming from a legitimate source, etc., etc. Each tool only sees its own clean stage, right? So the sandbox is being defeated. Why? Because this particular payload is designed for sandbox evasion. URL detonation is being defeated. Why? Because the URL has been pre-written using Inky and Cisco Web, etc., etc., or the domain has been stood up brand new, or 150 other reasons. MFA is no longer a final defense. Why? Because yes, we saw without the credentials, without the MFA, yes, we can still get breached. Geo-gated. We are unfortunately in Australia. We do not produce our own security technology. Not a lot of email security technology, at least as far as I know. New Zealand does. There was a product called Mail Marshal. That is where I learned my email security. And there is a product called Mail Marshal. Excuse me, any Mail Marshal fans over here. It still continues to exist. Still the same people developing it. So yes, and I used to, well, yeah, I'm still in touch with those people. I still love that product, which very much nostalgia, etc., etc. But geo-gated helps the threat actor. Why? Because they simply say connections coming from Australia and New Zealand only. Suddenly, they've targeted, ring-fenced their phishing asset to just us as customers. And then when our users click on it, whoa, the phishing page shows up. Our security vendor says, I couldn't see the phishing page. This was so amazing. This is nation-state sponsored stuff. This is the well-oiled machine at the phishing infrastructure, etc., etc., etc. 2013, when I first stood up over here to present, my topic of conversation was unfortunately very similar. That when Australian organizations got breached, it was very convenient back then to blame state-sponsored. Or they were too well-resourced. We didn't stand a chance. Unfortunately, very often it was the dancing cat video that arrived in the user's mailbox. The user clicked on it. That was it. So users were somehow engaging, and even then, the main method of compromise involved email. 2026 main method of compromise still unfortunately involves email. Let's move on. We don't accept failures, at least not daily failures, in a developed country such as Australia with our power grid. Do we have power cuts? Maybe in very rural specific situations for some amount of time, but we've gotten past that as a civilization, right? So the power grid does not come back with a 100% guarantee. Does anyone have a 100% guarantee on any of these things? No, we don't. Yet, we don't actually carry candles saying, oh, the power is about to go, I better be prepared, right? Mobile network. Carrier pigeons. We all must have them, right? Why? Because the mobile network can fail every day. The laptop. Yes, I had an issue this morning. But do we expect the laptop to fail? Do I carry a paper or pen? Did I have a paper version of this presentation? I couldn't possibly. It's got videos in it. But anyway, the internet, right? Everyone has got a private jet parked in our backyard. Why? Because the internet could fail. So why on earth have we come to the expectation that email security will fail every day? That messages will continue to slip through, and whom do we rely on? The poor user. So let's just assume for a moment that this group over here in this room, we are actually running an e-commerce business. Pick one, Amazon or eBay or whatever, pick your choice. Yeah, Trade Me maybe, or I don't know, something more local to Australia. Anyway, so let's assume we are running an e-commerce business. We've got all these web apps that are actually our business core. So the core of the business is basically these web applications where our customers are engaging. And we, this group over here, is responsible for coming up with these web applications, maintaining them, running the code, etc. So we are the web developers over there. We've got some QA engineers over here. We've got some network engineers over here. And one of those web applications had a serious vulnerability which the threat actor exploited, and we got breached. As a result, the whole group gets fired. Is that fair? Why? Because we didn't report the vulnerability. We are the consumer or the user, the end user, who is really responsible for finding those vulnerabilities, patching them, etc., etc. The security organization, right? So here's my question to the audience. Why is the user in one particular area of security so heavily responsible and carrying the burden of security? At all, the user shouldn't have clicked on the link, the user shouldn't have opened the attachment, the user shouldn't have gotten defrauded because they got a BEC email or whatever the case may be. But why this over-reliance on the user? Do we have that with the endpoint? At all. You shouldn't have opened that file. It's your fault. We fire you. Why does it apply to email? Why such low expectations from our email security solution? Some will get through. Train your users. The most expensive email security technologies ship with this disclaimer baked in. I'm having to be careful over here because, again, they tend to hire the best lawyers. They would rather not invest in improving the technology. They would rather just sue people, saying, don't say anything against us. If a user catches what the secure email gateway misses every day anyway, why do we need a secure email gateway? Why pay all these money to these expensive technologies? Premium contracts, a miss should mean accountability, not, oh, let's just run another phishing simulation. So the question is, instead of saying when the next email gets through, how about we try and shift the conversation to if the next email gets through? What do I mean by that? I mean that the end user should be the if a bad email gets in front of them rather than, oh, it's going to get through. You must be ready to report it and not engage with it. And that's what we did 20 plus years ago with those Microsoft notifications that change or reset your password or keep your existing password. That's the funniest one I find. Keep your existing password. Click here. And users still click on it in 2026. There is no such thing as keep your existing password. And we haven't gotten through to that in 20 years. How do we stay up with all this stuff that is coming down at us? Thank you. Thoughts, questions, feedback?
Question in the front. We've
Yes.
got time for one quick question. The next session starts in a second.
It was more of an observation. Is that I think there's an overlap between a well-crafted, illegitimate email and a poorly written, legitimate email. So differentiating between the two is actually, you need some intelligence or some sort of insight to the context of the email to understand whether it's legit or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Come talk to us at the booth on how we go about doing it. That's what we do. That's why we exist, and that's why we are having the success.
Everyone, please thank Rahul. He's in town for the rest of the week. You can see the guys at Normal as well. You want a prize, Rahul?
Ooh.
There's a prize for you, mate. No, that's a gift from Osert. Thank you very much for your talk. And our next speaker's about to start in a few minutes. So, cheers, mate.